Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Fiction Room. Today's writing prompt comes to us from username Silent Pear. The prompt is, the lone survivor of an Arctic exploration. You were captured generations ago by a band of tiny warriors. They've placed you under an enchantment to do their bidding, heading out into the world once each year as their unwilling emissary. They call you Slave, or, in their tongue, Santa. Our first story today is written by Noah Elowen.
I lived in constant dizziness. A fog swirled and melded with cold, dense mist inside my mind. My thoughts were hollow, empty. The passage of time ceased to exist. For a second I stared at the pristine snow, at the blinding sun. And a moment later, I was soaring the night sky in a wooden sleigh, pulled by colorful deer. It had been my curse, my fate, the cost for staying alive, if you will, to live life in such a way. I had been captured by a civilization of tiny people, called Elves, and they had put me under a spell to be their emissary once a year. I was not aware of what I did, but flashes of cozy, sleeping and smiling children often came to my mind, and so I knew my unwilling deeds were not something wicked. Things took a turn, however, when a little elf came before me, lifted the spell and spoke to me in a far-flung nook of the Arctic, where no other elf could see us. He was against what his people were doing, said it was slavery, and that I could escape in the flying sleigh if I wished to. But he explained to me they truly did not understand what they were doing to me, as they had only one purpose: to make the children smile. I pondered over his offer a great deal. This was not life. For I did things, but I only remembered a sliver of those things. However, at last, after I had went through a long list of questions regarding the whole situation, I asked him, "So, do I bring joy to the children?"
Yes. They wait for you every year with unparalleled eagerness,
the elf said, dancing a small jive at the rhythm of his melodic words. What he said struck the core of my heart, made me wince and grimace. I was under a spell, yes, but he convinced me that there were no evil intentions in the elves' doing. They simply did not understand, or so I chose to believe, that putting people under a spell was a different sort of torture, but a torture after all. Deep down, despite the years I had lost, I could not feel hatred nor resentment against them. After all, those years I had lost of my life meant the smiles of children across the world. It was a small price to pay for such a beautiful thing, one I would pay time and time again. "What if I do it willingly?" I said to the twinkling elf. "Some of your people can come with me in the sleigh and watch over me. Make sure I don't ruin Christmas. And if I do, you can put me under the spell again."
I was hoping you would say that.
The elf said, smiling.
Let's go home and meet the family. They'll be joyous to finally be able to call you by your true name.
I laughed and waved my hands dismissively. "The children know me as Santa. They don't understand the meaning the word has in your language. But I would very much like to add my name to it, if that's a possibility." The elf beamed and nodded.
Sure thing. Would you tell me your name?
"It's Nicholas, but people call me Klaus."
Our second story today is written by Sir Lemoncakes. Icy winds swept over a compound of log cabins. Small, twisted figures lurked outside each door. They chittered and barked in a harsh, broken tongue. Inside one of the cabins sat an old man bent over a workbench. He was expansive, well over 6 feet tall, with a bone-white beard which reached the middle of his broad chest. He toiled away, stitching the leather of a harness. He savored the quiet time. The parts of the year where the twisted elves only beat and starved him. But every day which flew from the calendar, inching him closer to the hated holiday, was like a nail being driven into his skull. Soon, he knew, he would be forced into the sleigh and made to work until his bones quaked, until his body screamed for reprieve, until he would rather die than take one more interminable step. He also knew from experience that by that time, he would be roughly a third of the way done. Tomorrow was it. Tomorrow was the day that the elves would load him onto the sleigh and force him to deliver their twisted gifts to all the boys and girls of the world. It would be over in a day. It would last him a lifetime. Time was different on the sleigh. He envied people blessed enough to burn in the fires of hell. He longed for the burden of Atlas or Prometheus. His torture was more refined and cruel than ever they could imagine. He looked at the sleigh, tears streaming down his face. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, no one heard his sobbing, not even a mouse. Our third and final story today is written by Mr. C. Chapman. The Fae, the Elfkin, have coveted our world for eons. Stories sneak through into human consciousness of their acts. The British had King Arthur, the Seelie and Unseelie. Australia has the mysterious Baijini, the white people from the north. Japan has the Kami. The Mayans had terrible twins and boys with antlers. These are folk memories of wars that pushed us to the brink of extinction, written large into the tapestry of human existence, permeating every culture and consciousness. We were trapped in pack ice, the ship's hull cracking as great forces moved, when they came. The expedition had been to find the Northwest Passage, and the captain had insisted that with stars and Providence, and one of Master Harrison's clocks, we would be the first to chart the route to the riches of the East. We all knew the risks. Hudson had not only failed, but failed and died. Nor had Cook succeeded. Yet we, in a fit of youthful folly and hope, believed that the passage would be found. When the ship stopped and broke herself in the ice, we furrowed brows knitted with ice. When the food and water ran low, we looked at each other with wary eyes. And when the rum ration was finished, the mutiny began. Nights in the north come long or quick, depending on the season. The bloody nights seemed to last forever. The loyalists in the castle, the mutineers scurrying like rats across deck, and roped to finish us off with shot or cutlass. 16 turned to 6, turned to 3, and, as Midshipman Smollett choked his last wheezing gasp, 1. My shirt was now coated with red, turned a deep sanguine, so that only a few cuffs and collars of white remained. By then, dawn finally broke. Not a true dawn, just an orange permeating glow, for we were too far north for the sun to rise, and I decided to accept my fate. I opened the barricades, walked past the splintered windows pockmarked from where leaden balls had flown, and decided to face the mutinous rabble. Only they weren't there. all that remained on the deck was silence and death, and a small figure, ears pointed like a pine cone, features cruel and barbarous. Quietly, he looked at me, and I realized with horror he was gnawing on the bony hand of Samuel Saunders, one of the top men, whose tattoos and curling hair I would have known anywhere. My revulsion must have been plain, for he dropped the limb onto the deck and licked his vile lips with slow precision, a stream of spit giving sheen to his teeth.
"How now, traveler?"
he asked.
"Methinks we have found a Santa Claus."
Thanks again for listening to The Fiction Room. If you like what you heard, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really does help us. But for now, stay safe out there, everyone. See you next time.